Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. From butchering babies in the womb to threatening to dismember people after they're born, that's what Hunter College art professor Shalyn Rodriguez is accused of supporting. Earlier this month, she was caught on camera cursing out pro-life students on the Manhattan campus, and after being forced to issue an apology by school officials, she was terminated when video of her then emerged in which she was seen allegedly threatening a New York Post reporter with a machete outside of her apartment in the Bronx. The reporter identified himself, who he worked for, and why he was there, asking to interview her about that previous incident on campus. But within seconds, he became the center of his own story when she allegedly began holding the machete to his neck, as you can see, telling him she was going to chop him up. She then chased the reporter and his photographer outside, still waving the blade around, screaming that she was going to F them up if she ever saw them again on her block. Rodriguez reportedly ended the foot chase by kicking one of the postmen in the shins before running back inside the building. Despite all of that, as you might imagine, she's claiming this is all taking a toll on her mental health and that the school capitulated to racist and misogynist, she says, by removing her from her position. Well, just like it's the baby's fault for being conceived at an inopportune time. See how backward the self-conceit of the left is and how it flows through everything they see and do. It's just like that Michigan man who shot down an 84-year-old pro-life activist who was going door to door, trying to solicit opposition last September for a proposed state constitutional amendment to make abortion a guaranteed right there. Joan Jacobson had argued with the man's wife about it at the front door, and as she was just walking away, he shot her in the back, in the shoulder. He claims it was accidental, and thankfully she lived, but now yesterday, after pleading no contest, a judge gave him just 100 hours of community service and a suspended jail sentence of 2 months. See how respect for life outside the womb begins with respecting it first inside the womb? And while Michigan ended up passing that amendment last midterm election, other states are making good on implementing new pro-life laws. In fact, about 80 Planned Parenthood employees are expecting to lose their jobs now, following a recent statement from the abortion giant regarding layoffs in the wake of the fall of Roe. That may not sound like a lot right off the bat, but that figure actually makes up between 10 to 20% of Planned Parenthood's national office, which is where the layoffs are coming from. According to the statement, the organization needs to reimagine its operations. I guess they need to get more creative in killing, including a $70 million investment into affiliate groups. Joining us now to discuss all this and more is Abby Johnson, the CEO and founder of Pro-Love Ministries. Abby, thanks for being here tonight.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Great. So does this spell trouble for Planned Parenthood, or is it perhaps too early to celebrate?
You know, I think Planned Parenthood has been having some trouble for quite some time. We know that to be true. Our organization, And Then There Were None, of course, helps abortion clinic workers leave the abortion industry and find new jobs outside of the abortion industry. And we've been hearing for quite some time, especially since Roe was overturned, that the abortion giant is in trouble. Morale is at an all-time low. They are worried about funding, of course, with the abortion pill being so easily available online. With, Biden and the FDA, they're in cahoots, of course, trying to make the abortion pill essentially, just over the counter, behind the counter with the pharmacist. That is going to cut into Planned Parenthood's profits tremendously. So Planned Parenthood, I believe, I've been out of Planned Parenthood for now almost 14 years. This is the weakest I have ever seen Planned Parenthood in the past 14 years. And that is something definitely to celebrate for pro-lifers.
That is, and I know you have a conference coming up where you get to celebrate a lot of it, but also talking about what comes next. But before I get to that, I just want to ask you one last question about some of those headlines we touched on. As I mentioned, Michigan, the 84-year-old woman, the pro-lifer who was shot in the back, in the shoulder, and then the guy only gets 100 hours of community service, barely a slap on the wrist. And then the New York art professor screaming at pro-life kids and then waving machetes around. As I was saying earlier, do you think it really is true? If you don't respect life inside the womb, how are you going to respect it outside the womb?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Karen. Just look at our society right now as a whole. When I was growing up, I'm 42 years old. When I was growing up and in school, I knew nobody that was, participating in self-harm. I didn't know any kids that committed suicide when I was growing up. We didn't have these problems of just devaluation of life.